It's time to take a look at the data that we collected in our free fall experiment that I showed you in a previous video. And let's analyze it in Excel. So you'll see some numbers along the side here in column B, right? So here's B, there's a column. And there's some numbers. How did I get that information? So let's do a couple things. Let me go to Insert. And I'm going to insert an image, so a picture in this case. And I want to take a look at that first piece of tape that we were looking at. And it's nice and big, which is nice. I kind of like that. Let's move it out of the way. And let's continue with insert. And let me insert a shape. And I'm going to put an arrow in here. Remember when I discussed this earlier, that was .0 right there. Let's make that arrow a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go to Shape, Outline. Remember, I did all of this in Word as well, right? So that was .0, and then I measured each subsequent dot. So let me insert another arrow. Oh, notice this one, I did not hit the Shift key. So that one right there. This first dot, which I really want to call the 0th dot, that's the 0 that you see right here. That's the position 0. And then the dot that this arrow is pointing to, that has a distance of 0.4 centimeters from the 0 dot. And then let's put in another arrow. And I'll make sure I do this one horizontally. So that dot right there, as measured from dot 0, is a distance of 1.3 centimeters. So it's 1.3 centimeters from 0 to this dot. Right? And then I continue on down. I won't go through all of that. But these are all of the positions of the dots that I got measurements for, and they're all in centimeters. Okay, so I just typed them all in. It's not any major issue there, but we have taken a look a little bit at a couple of the menus. So I'm going to move this guy off to the side. I think I'll leave it there, but I want to get it out of the way for now. Hopefully I won't need that, but I'll have it there in case I do. I can do a lot of things like I did before. I could highlight these guys and I could change the font size. I'm just going to stick with Arial 10. I mean, I can make it. Let's make them really big. Let's make them 18. So, ooh, that's much bigger. And if I want to undo that, I can do the undo button over here. I've zoomed in. You can see I'm at 130 if you look here in the lower right-hand corner. I'm actually going to go to 140. Okay, I can boldface. I can highlight cells, right? So each of these squares or rectangles, each of these rectangles is considered a cell. And they all have an address, and you can see the address right here in the upper left. So this is A2. So the first reference is the column, and columns are all lettered. Once I've reached past past Z, then I go to AA, AB, AC, etc., and then BA, BB, BC, etc. And then rows are here, right? So here's a column. Columns go up and down as I look at this chart. Rows go left and right. And so this is row 2. So this is in column B, row 3. So this cell right here is B3. So there's some cell reference information for you in Excel. All right, now let's go ahead and label this column of data. And one of the conventions that I've seen in a textbook is to do the labeling to include units and symbols. So I'm going to call this position. Okay, I'm going to call it position. And I'm going to do Alt-Enter. And what that does is it gives me a row down inside the cell. And I'm going to put the symbol that I want to use in parentheses. So I'm going to call this X. Actually, let me call it Y, because Y is pretty much standard for up and down. And then in square brackets, so that the symbol is in curved parentheses, but in square brackets, I'm going to put the units, so centimeters. And there's everything. And Excel, in this case, automatically resized it so it fit. And the other thing I notice here is that position, Y, and centimeters. Notice how that's left justified. It's very normal for Excel to take a label, not a value, but a label, and left justify it. And then values, which are numbers that can be calculated. I can use them in arithmetic and other calculations to right justify those. But let's go ahead and just center everything. So I highlight the entire column. I go up here to alignment and I'll hit center. And so everybody is centered here. And then I'm going to want time. So let's put that right next to it. So I'm going to have time, T-I-M-E. I hit Alt Enter again. The symbol for time is T. And the units for time are seconds. And that's just the letter S. So there's that. And let's center that again. Now the first time will be 0, so I'll go ahead and just put a 0 in here. And then the next one is 1/60th of a second. So in fact, let me change my units because I don't want to have fractions and decimal places floating around. Let me change that. So I'm going to go into the cell. I click up here into the entry bar, and I'm going to put 1/60th of a second. Like that. As a matter of fact, let's not do that. Let's go ahead and insert an equation. Oh, it's not going to let me. All right, so I have 0 here, and then I'm going to type in 1 and enter 2, enter 3, enter. Oh my gosh, I don't want to do that. So we have a couple of options. One of them is I'm going to go in increments of 1, so I'm just going to highlight the 0 and the 1. And you'll notice how both cells are highlighted. And when I put the cursor over that highlighted set of cells, it's a fat plus sign. Right? It's the same thing over here. I've got a fat plus sign. So I highlight these two cells. Then I go to the lower right-hand corner. And when I do that, notice it becomes a small black plus sign. And I'm going to drag all of this down. And because it says 0, 1, etc., it's going to add 1 to everything. Let's do it again. Let's start with 5 and 6. Highlight that. And if I go down, it's still going to go in increments of 1. Right? Maybe this is 12 and this is 15. You'll notice it does increments of 3. I can do 7 and 7.2. And this will do increments of 0.2. So you can see some of the power that's in there. It's pretty cool. But let's go back to where we were, 0 and 1. Highlight those two and drag it down. You also may have noticed that when I got to the edge, it became arrows in left, right, and up, down. And that's because I can move this around, right? That means I'm ready to move things. And that exists in Word as well. Okay, so we've got some labeling done, and we've got some cells entered. So let's stop there. And if you have questions on that initial stuff, leave them in the comments below, please. Thank you.